Okay, so welcome. This is Talking Toddlers, the sequel. We're looking at our second lot of Talking Toddlers research this morning. It's great to have you with us, and we hope this will be a really encouraging session for you all. We're going to introduce the faces and people you'll see on screen now. I'll start with myself and then I can shut up for a few minutes and put those safeguarding bits of information in the chat. So my name is Sammy Jordan. I have the great pleasure of working at Hope Together, okay, with Rachel Jordan Wolfe, who you're going to meet in a minute, and hosting Talking Toddlers with Rachel Heffer, who you're going to meet in a minute. My kind of authenticity and claim to be here is that I ran a toddler group for 11 years before I did this job. So it's great to be with my toddler group family this morning. Rachel, one of the Rachels, over to you.
Good morning. Well, let me add my warm welcome to all of you. As Sammy said, we love working in this partnership between the Evangelical Alliance and Hope Together, and with the Church of England now as well. My name, as you heard, is Rachel. I serve as Head of Mission at the Evangelical Alliance, and I live in Ely in Cambridgeshire. I'm now a mum of two teenage boys who are somewhat bigger than toddlers, but again, historically have been very involved and immersed in toddler groups and in Messy Church, and I'm passionate about the mission field that is our toddler groups and working with under fives. So that's me. Let me pass right over to Rachel Jordan Wolfe.
Oh, hello. I am Rachel Jordan Wolfe. I lead Hope Together, and it's a joy to be here. I particularly love research, so I'm really looking forward to a deep dive into that. I'm going to hand over to my good friend Emma in the Church of England to say hello.
Hi, and thank you, Rachel. My name's Emma Buchan. I am Head of Churches and Network Support within the Vision and Strategy team in the Church of England. My reason for being here is I really focus on doubling the number of children and young active disciples in the Church of England. And personally, my favourite hour of the week is when I run a toddler group on a Friday afternoon. And that's the thing that genuinely gives me the most joy in all that I do to serve. Handing over.
Excellent. Well, so that's who we are. We are the team behind Talking Toddlers. But again, just to say huge thank you to you all right from the outset for joining us today, or if you're watching it on catch up. Our heart behind Talking Toddlers is this. For some of you, there may have been many of you that have been with us on the Talking Toddlers journey since May 2020, when we produced the first Talking Toddlers research in this partnership. And what's been a real joy is that off the back of that, even as we crashed into the craziness of lockdown and the pandemic, we have been so delighted to join with what is now over 400 of you from across the UK, toddler group leaders, children's and family workers, church leaders, to be with us on the journey, not just around the research, but as many of you will know, with the 3 webinars, Talking Toddlers webinars that we host during the course of the year. So we're really thrilled at this point in time to be coming to you with a new piece of research. And I hope that that's why you're with us today, because you have gained that from May 2020 right through to now, almost the end of June, incredibly, 2025, we have remapped the research. So we hope that what you'll hear today will inspire and equip, courage and resource you. But I'm just going to pass over to Emma briefly now to say a little about what the Church of England, as part of this partnership, are doing.
Thank you. I'm just seeing if have you got an echo with me, or is it better now? It's better now. Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much. So as I said earlier, my name is Emma Buchan, and I lead the Churches and Network support team for the Church of England. And some of you will know that the Church of England has a bold and deeply rooted vision to double the number of children and young active disciples by 2030. And this isn't just a line in a strategy document. It's something we're investing in with serious intent, financially, relationally, prayerfully, and spiritually. And when we say that this is the priority of priorities, we really mean it. It's shaping decision level at every single level of the church, right up to the Archbishop's Council. In fact, the Archbishop's Council, every single paper that goes to the Archbishop's Council, one of the most senior meeting bodies in the Church of England, every single paper, whether it's about pensions, whether it's about buildings, has to say how it is contributing to the priority of priorities to double the number of children, young, active disciples. It's really phenomenal to see the difference this is making. And we believe this is where God is calling us to focus. And as we take a step back and pray and try to discern how we best respond to that call, Talking Toddlers emerges as a beautiful and significant opportunity. Why? Because toddler groups are often the very first place that families come into contact with the church. Every week across the country, thousands of parents, carers, and babies and toddlers walk through the doors of churches and church halls. Many of them have no other connection to church life, and yet they come. They feel welcome, they feel safe, they feel seen. The Church of England has partnered with the EA and Hope together because we want to understand this moment more deeply. We want to learn and what's really happening in these groups, what draws people in, what keeps them coming back, and how can we better support toddler group leaders, local churches and dioceses in the space. And this research gives us a valuable window into the lived reality of these groups, their joys, their challenges, and their huge potential. It helps us to see where support is needed, where opportunity is growing, and how we can walk more closely alongside those who are faithfully leading and welcoming families week after week. So, in the context of our national vision to grow younger, this matters hugely. Because if we're going to double the number of children and young people, and let's be honest, only God can double, but as we work towards it, as we pray towards this, the young people in the church, the life of the church, we can't just focus on those who are already here. We have to meet families with where they are, gently, consistently, and relationally. As I said earlier, honestly, the most joyful hour of my week is my toddler praise on a Friday at 2 o'clock, which I will be at tomorrow afternoon. And actually, what we discovered with that was loads of the kids were leaving. So we added on something called Pizza and Praise because the kids were going to school and where were they going to be connected in? So we started a Pizza and Praise. And honestly, seeing the joy of those young people really understanding who God is, dancing to our God as a great big broad God, praying fervently is what surely God has called us to do. And, as we know in the Bible, it says, let the little children come to me and do not hinder them, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. So whilst I recognise I'm preaching to the choir, this piece of research, this piece of work is hugely important as we respond. How is God calling you? How is God calling me to take this further and to take this forward? All of our work is generally built on this kind of insight and research. So we, the Church of England, are delighted to be part of this partnership.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Emma. Hopefully from what Emma shared, you just sit up that bit taller, feel really encouraged as we just remind ourselves, don't we, what a significant and important mission field and part of this work across the ministries of the church that we're all a part of. What we have loved over the last 5 years in hosting the 3 webinars during the year is to be able to resource you, to serve you, to glean your ideas, to be a hugely interactive community. And we've loved that about it. So thank you again for joining us now. And again, like we said, if you're new with us today, we'd love to encourage you again to sign up later on today, that you can stay connected as we move on here with this research. But for now, we'd love to give you just a few minutes to get connected with each other, because that is the beauty of this network, with the sharing of resources, using of the chat and so on, as we said. So we're going to go just for a few minutes, 4 or 5 minutes, into Zoom rooms. And we'd quite simply love you to connect with each other very briefly, to say who you are, where you are, and what brings you to join this webinar today. What do you hope to get out of it? Do share whether this is your first time with us, whether you've been on the Talking Toddlers journey over the last 5 years, but just a few minutes, say who you are, where you are, what you hope for today. So we will go beautifully into our Zoom rooms and we'll come back together in just a few moments' time. Enjoy getting acquainted. Well, welcome back. We're really thrilled to have you back together, and hopefully you've all enjoyed getting slightly acquainted, albeit very swiftly, in the Zoom rooms. I was delighted in my Zoom room to find that out of 5 of us, 3 of the people with us were new, first time of connecting with us in Talking Toddlers. So to those others of you for whom this is the first time, you are so welcome. We're really grateful of your time to be in this space. What we heard, I wonder what you discussed in your room, but what we heard is that, again, a scattergun of people from all over the UK, really encouraging of the connection points from far and wide, but that people had joined today One person was saying that they'd started a new toddler group last September, so we're just making it through to the end of their first academic year. We cheer them on. But many looking ahead, planning ahead, looking to go deeper with relationships, looking for ideas. And obviously what comes out of research is hopefully just both encouraging and challenging statistics, isn't it? Which all help paint a picture of what we're a part of, and hopefully give us ideas for moving on. So thank you for taking part within the Zoom rooms. We hope to have one more later, which will give you a chance to just reflect, digest, chat to each other about some of what you hear, what comes out of this research now. But I'm delighted to hand straight over to Dr. Rachel Jordan-Wolfe, good friend, and who has been really involved with Savanta Comres, who we went to last time on the research, didn't we, Rachel? But delving into what Talking Toddlers 2025. So we're going to look at this in two parts. Rachel, you're going to kickstart us, aren't you, with looking at a bit of an overview of what comes out of the research, and to looking at those, what we would call fringe parents, which is basically people who are attending our groups, potentially not yet Christians, but people who've shown an interest in joining us in some of our work with under five. So Rachel, thank you for your work on this so far. We look forward to you sharing with us now some of those headline findings. So over to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So without further ado, we're going to dig into the research. So I'm going to share my screen and then start the PowerPoint show so that you can follow along. Let's see what's happening. Oops. Wonderful. Great. So I've had a lot of joy digging into these. And we have so much we could share, but we're going to start with what we can share in the time that we've got. So first of all, a little bit about what we've done and how we've done it. So we've worked with Savanta, and we worked with them before so that we could have as comparable a set of data as possible to the 2019 set. So where we can pick up trends. We've looked at the sort of you'll have an overview, particularly some of the activities compared. We're going to look at fringe parents. We're hoping to have a little look at the unreached parents, and we will have, if we have time, a little look at some of the active Christian parents. So first of all, how did we do this? So Savanta did a 15-minute online survey, quite a long one, with these parents. Now, the parents all had to have a child under the age of 5. So the children were aged 0 to 4. 1,425 parents completed the survey. There's a little boost sample in there. So for a couple of the slides, it's a slightly smaller survey number because it just needs to be, if you like, slightly more of a randomized survey so that we can, for the big numbers, so that we can see how we're doing and what we're reaching across the UK. The field work took place, believe it or not, just on the 12th to the 27th of May. So this is literally very hot off the press. So let's have a little dig. The first thing is, do you remember, some of you will have seen the research before, some of you won't have. So in 2019, we discovered that we had such a big reach of both active Christian parents, fringe parents and unreached parents. Let me explain those categories to you. The active Christian parents are people who are regularly worshipping in a church community at least once a month. They're also either reading their Bibles and praying. And we found in this group a real correlation between those who regularly worshipped and prayed and read their Bibles. There wasn't actually a big difference. So there's something very positive about parents, particularly this group of parents with children under the age of 5, and their spiritual practices. So we found a real correlation between regular church practice and these regular spiritual practices of Bible and prayer. So there's 13%, so that's gone up since 2019, who are meeting that active Christian parent category. And this is where we've dropped the boost so that we can actually have a look. So this is out of a sample of 1,221 parents with children under the age of 5. And then we have this huge, enormous reach again of 67% of parents with children who are under the age of 5 who are what we call fringe. So they are coming along to our activities, but there's a whole range in there of, if you like, of belief and practice. And so they're not active Christians, but they have a whole range of belief and practice. So they're the group we're really interested in, if you like, you have this group in your toddler groups. And so what the answers that they have to the questions is really, really interesting. So that gives us an enormous reach of 80%, 80% of parents with children under the age of 5 who are in touch with a church through our whole list of activities that we can have a look at in just a minute. And therefore, the unreached group has shrunk. So this correlates with a lot of the other research that's coming out at the moment. I expect many of you have heard of the Quiet Revival, which is showing that the church is actually growing, and it's particularly growing among a younger generation. And this we're seeing reflected again with the parents of children under the age of 5. And you'll see, I'll point out particularly where we're seeing, if you like, some of that, if you like, hunger for spiritual things that I've seen as I've gone through this research, which again is higher than it was in 2019. Great. Good, you're still with me? Activities compared. So we're going to have a little deep dive into what this 80% of people are doing and how they're related to us, and what it is that the churches across the country, remember this is across all denominations, are up to, and how these parents with the children under the age of 5 are in touch with us. So you'll be absolutely thrilled to know that 55% of them are in touch with us through a toddler group, which is just fantastic news for all of you. So can I just say a really, really, really big well done for what you do, because what you do is actually making a tangible difference in the mission and growth of the church in the UK. I'm just going to say that one more time because it's so important. What you do as toddler group leaders is making a tangible difference to the mission and the growth of the church in the UK. So 55% of that group are actively part of a toddler group. There's other things people are part of: preschool playgroups, Christmas and Easter harvest, Fates, Carnivals, Fun Day, family services, baptisms, christenings, messy church, bubble church, Sunday worship. So some of these people are worshipping with us. And so there's 17% who do come along to Sunday worship, rainbows and other uniform groups, Sunday school, church holiday club, church choir. Other was 1%. So we mostly did get every way that these people could be in touch with a local church. And it's absolutely brilliant that 87% of them, see that at the bottom, are regularly in touch with us. So this is a regular commitment that they have with the church through all those activities. But a huge well done for the impact of the toddler group. Wonderful. We're now going to have a look at some of the what people think of the importance, particularly of things like Bible stories, and whether or not in toddler groups people think this is really important. So this is just, we've got a little comparison here as to what's going on in our toddler groups. We wanted to know what actually happens. What are you doing out there? So 81% of the active Christian parents who go to a toddler group said they remember a Bible story time, and 35% of the fringe parents say that they remember having, they encounter Bible stories in their toddler group. And 62% of all the fringe parents said that there was at least one Christian activity in the toddler group that they were going to. And 97% of the active Christian parents said that there was a Christian activity in the toddler group that they're going to. So that is really, really helpful for us. There's some, obviously, that don't have it, 31% that don't have any Christian content. We'd love to see that changed, because we know that that can make a real difference both to the children and the parents. But well done. There's a real registering, particularly with the fringe parents and particularly with the active Christian parents, that there is Christian content, there's Bible stories and songs and prayers that are happening in our toddler groups. So well done. And we'd love to see when we do this again that 31% is completely down. But that's a really great curve. And then we thought we'd be really interested to know what fringe parents thought of, and unreached parents, remember that's an even further out group, they're the group who have no contact with us at the moment, think about basic Bible story knowledge and whether it's important for their children. So as you can see, 6 in 10 fringe parents and a third of unreached parents think that it is very or somewhat important for their children to have basic knowledge of Bible stories. That actually is a huge number of parents with children under the age of 5 who think it's important to have a basic knowledge of Bible stories for their children. This should really encourage us in putting that into our toddler group and every other aspect of our contact with these parents and their children who are under the age of 5. So they think it's really important. And you can also see there that so this is like the active Christian parents. Obviously, they're obviously going to want these things for their children. But look at this for the fringe parents, the basic Bible stories and Christian worship and exploring religious beliefs and prayer. They are interested. But look at this, even as we said in the unreached, there is almost a third of the unreached parents who actually do think a knowledge of Bible stories is important for their children. So when we get a bit later to looking at them, we'll see how that expands and see how we can connect to those we aren't yet in contact with. Great. So that was a little bit of an overview. We're now going to, if you like, take the lid off one of these groups, and we're going to look specifically at the fringe parents. So these are the parents who are attending. Remember, 87% of them are attending regularly. So firstly, preschool, playgroup and Sunday school are the activities most often attended regularly by children. So that's particularly by the children, not necessarily always with their parents. And so we know that we've got a huge reach. It's interesting to me that Sunday school is still so high. I'd love to know a bit more about, when you do research, you really want to do a little bit more research. Well, I'd actually like to know a little bit more about where and how Sunday school is still happening and who's doing that. Now, the next thing we looked at is what change there has been with the attending of toddler groups regularly with their children. And we can see really clearly that toddler group, that parents activity they're attending, it's a little less frequently toddler group, but their children are attending Sunday school a little bit more, which is why I'd quite like to do a deep dive into what's happening within Sunday schools. But we've not got all of that today. I love this next slide. Would you stay with me for this one? This is some of the reasons that the fringe parents have decided to come along to what we're doing. Have a look at this. Oop. So, number one, just like we saw, if you remember in 2019, they wanted their child to enjoy what they were coming to. And 47% in 2025 still said that was the big reason. But good values has gone up to 36%. But I want us to have a little look down here. Have a look at some of the changes around faith. So I wanted my child or children to have an awareness of God. 23% of the parents in 2025 said that they came along to these activities because they wanted their child to have an awareness of God. And that is a big jump from 16% in 2019. Have a look at this one. I wanted some Christian knowledge for my children. 18% is again a significant jump from 12%. And I love this one down here. I want my child to learn Bible stories. Again, it's a jump from 9% to 13%. They're not the biggest reasons. The biggest reason is still that the child would need to enjoy what's happening. And we need to remember that in everything that we do. That their child loves and wants to be there. And good values is really big, and friendship. All of these things are really powerful. But it's so fascinating to me that awareness of God, even a familiarity with church and Bible stories has actually moved, and more people in 2025 are registering, if you like, a spiritual interest and needs for their children. Then we wanted to find out, how did the fringe parents find out about these activities? So how it is that they came along. The number one was through a friend. That's nothing unusual. We just know the power of friendship. Then it was social media channels. I'm sure many of you use those, but that shows again the power of what we can do from social media. But if you look, most of the contacts are human, if you like, they're personal. It's a friend, it's someone in the family, someone in my community, and even other parents, e.g. at nursery, who'd invited them along. A neighbour, So a lot of it is the power of the individual person. So who we meet and who we know. And so this shows us both what we do, but also how we empower all our active Christian parents and those ones regularly in church to be, if you like, the forefront of inviting. But actually, it can be a neighbour. We can empower our whole church to be on the lookout to invite people to our toddler group, even if they themselves aren't attending. There's real power in personal invitation. I love this one. You're doing a fantastic job in 2025 of welcoming parents with children under the age of 5 into all of those range of activities, be it a toddler group, a Sunday school, be it Christian church's Sunday worship. All of these activities, people are registering, look, very welcome or fairly welcome is the overwhelming response. So a huge well done to all of you, and a huge well done to the church for making parents with children under the age of 5 just so tremendously welcome. And then we love this one. What happens to the parents who come? Well, around half of the fringe parents feel helped to explore their beliefs by the activities that they attended. And this was both in 2019 and 2025. So this shows that when we have a mission field where we want to help those children, do you remember when Emma was sharing her story right at the beginning and the joy of singing them all singing Great Big God, we are also having an impact, of course, on their parents who are attending, who they themselves are beginning to explore their beliefs through these activities. What an extraordinary mission field that we have and that you are taking part in. And I love this now slide. There is a bigger and greater sense of belonging through what you're doing in toddler groups and Sunday church worship that's suitable for children and all the other things that's happening in church. More of these parents with children under the age of 5 are feeling, if you want, an association and an allegiance to church. I was discussing this with the researcher who helped with this research, and he was saying to me, we think maybe there is a growth. People predicted that people wanted to become less and less what he would call the word associated with things outside of themselves. And I feel that there is actually a growth in people wanting community, connection and association. And this is showing because they're actually saying, I want to call this my church. And so you'll find more and more of the people in your toddler group will want to say, I actually do belong. I belong to whatever your church is. I belong to River Church. I belong to St. Mary's. I belong to whatever church it is that I'm a part of. And from that belonging, we know can grow even more a sense of belief. So we're going to take a little break now so that you can have a little discussion about fringe parents. And then after the break, we're going to come back and we're going to look at the unreached parents and we're going to look at the active Christian parents. So I hope you've got a few headlines from that you can go into the group with, that people are thinking it's church, they're looking into belief and faith themselves, that toddler groups is one of the top things that people are coming to. They're coming regularly and we've got a bigger reach in 2025. That's so exciting than we had in 2019. So a big well done to you, team.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Rachel. That is our initial sweep through some of the headlines with more to come. So as Rachel said, we're going to go into breakout rooms now for just a few minutes. But what I'd love to ask you to do, as Anna behind the scenes has brilliantly put into the chat for us, some questions as to what are your initial reflections. So we'd love to ask you, would you go into those groups and maybe say, what surprises you? What challenges you? What inspires you? What do you connect with? And just share something of your initial thoughts or reflections from what you've heard so far. So let's go into our chat rooms, enjoy chatting with each other. Please do put any particular findings in the chat as you come back. That would be great to share with others. We'd love to hear what were your standout moments so far. And indeed use the chat for any questions. We will have a few minutes towards the end to ask Rachel and Emma and Sammy and others some Q&A further down the line. So any questions, drop those in the chat too. So enjoy going into your breakout rooms. We'll see you in just a few moments again. Welcome back. Hopefully, albeit only in a short bit of time, hopefully you had a chance to just reflect and dissect and speak to others about just some of those early thoughts you might have of what one or two things you might take away so far from what you've heard. We've heard a lot. We could go on mute, so that would be great. But do be reminded that all of the slides that you see will come out to you with the recording as well, so you'll be able to look at those in a bit more depth and detail. But in the group that I was a part of, some of the early findings were around fascinating to be reminded of this shift in people's openness. Some of the stats that Rachel spoke to was just again how people want to come because they want their children to have Christian values, Bible stories heard, Christian knowledge, and explore the Christian faith. But obviously where we have young eyes and ears, we also have obviously older people listening to the parents, the grandparents, the childminders and so on, that they too go on that spiritual journey, and the stats reflect that, don't they? We also picked up in our group just the power of welcome. How many people mentioned that it was being welcomed, being valued, people knowing our names and so on, that is really significant, isn't it? And really important in the building of relationships and community. We also mentioned it was picked out of a good reminder around the power of personal invitation. And we were just saying, just as we closed, actually coming to the end of a term, like the end of the summer term, to remind people that they can always invite their friends to come and join us again in the September term, but how important and powerful that personal invite is, not only for the warmth of welcome, but how people can become integrated in our communities. So those were a few things from my group. If you had some gems that came out of your discussions, please do continue to put them in the chat. But without further ado, we're going to go back to Rachel, who's going to inspire us again with some more of the findings that this time come from some of our prospective parents, Rachel, don't they? Those who are maybe not quite with us yet, not yet connected, but on the fringe of some of our activities. So do share with us what else came out of our Talking Toddlers report. Thank you.
Wonderful. So we'll go diving back in. Share. Let me just check I'm on the right one. Right, marvellous. So I think we did that one. Let me just do, great. So wonderful. As Rachel said, now we're going to have a little deep dive. These are parents who are not currently, parents with a child under the age of 5 who are currently not engaged or not connected to church. And we wanted to find out a little bit more about how we might connect with them. So first of all, why are they not connected? Well, the first number one reason is I'm not interested. And that hasn't changed since 2019. They're just not interested. That's the main group. But interestingly, some of the others are things we could change. We may not be able to get them interested, but we might be able to with the right personal invite. But I'm not sure if my local church offers any activities for children. So people just don't know what we're doing and what's going on. I've never been invited. That's really interesting, because when we see which was one of the reflections Rachel pulled out, the power of the personal invitation. It's fascinating. 18% of this group just have never been invited. And so that is something we can change. That it's not a priority. I don't want my children to grow up in church. I don't know what to expect. Not convenient times. I don't think my child wouldn't enjoy it. Another one, my local church doesn't offer any activities. So you put that together with not knowing if any churches do. That's quite a lot of people saying they don't know whether a church offers an activity, or they do know that they don't. Does that make any sense? So there's actually not enough opportunity. You'd think with all the number of toddler groups we've got going on and activities that there would be for everybody. But there are obviously some people who just don't know, or their church isn't offering anything for children under the age of 5. So there we are. That is a challenge to help every church to be involved and to see. Wonderful. But that's why they're not coming. But would they like to be, have they ever been invited? Would they like to be invited? Unreached parents are less likely to have been invited to activities in 2025 than 2019. So that's interesting. Less of them have had an invite now than in 2019. So we've had a growth of people being involved. So that's a really positive. But we've maybe have less of these people who are currently unreached have had an invite. So there is something for us to work on how we might do this. And when we thought we'd like to know, wouldn't this be interesting? How would those people like to be invited? you're going to have, this is a bit of a jaw drop, this is a really interesting one. Most of them would welcome, no, sorry, I've got first slide. Most of them would welcome an invite. So almost half of these unreached parents would actually welcome an invite. Yay! So that's really good news. I mean, it's staggeringly good news. Half of the parents with children under the age of 5 who we currently don't have a reach to would like to be invited. So I'm like, I mean, that is get out the party poppers. So of the ones we don't yet know, lots of them would love to be connected to us and would love to be invited. And I love this. They'd actually love to be invited by a letter or a leaflet. You've got to love that, people. So the number one way these people would like to find out about a toddler group is they'd be really happy with a leaflet through their letterbox. I just go, well, we know what we're all going to do going away from this, aren't we? We can all print letters and leaflets to go through letterboxes. I'm just like, wow, that's amazing. So 46% said they'd love a leaflet or through their letterbox. In fact, even more than wanting a friend to invite them, and even more than social media. Again, I think this is almost a reaction to the social media world. People would like something concrete. Maybe they could put a magnet on it and put it on their fridge and know when it's about and when it's coming. But they still would like to be invited by a friend. They'd be happy to be invited by someone in nursery or parents or someone in the community or someone in the family. The personal invite is still in there and it is still strong. Even a poster they'd be happy to know about. 28% said they'd like to see a poster like in the doctor's surgery or even on their street. It's so fascinating the ways that people would like an invite. And if I look down that list, there's so many of those things that we could easily do and take away and get connected to those unreached parents. But the big thing that they want to happen if they came along, which is very similar to 2019, is they want to know they'd be welcomed. And if you look at our extraordinary record on welcome, they would be so welcome. So isn't it interesting that the unreached people are just not sure whether they'd be welcome? And again, they're not sure that their child would fit in. I find that really fascinating. They're the two biggest sort of, if you like, things that we could do to persuade them, and yet we know our welcome would be enormous and we know their children would fit in. So again, something in the way that we invite, even in our posters, even in our invitations, maybe we could work on that together, looking at what would be the best sort of leaflet you could drop through that would help, particularly around these two factors that people need persuading of, that they would be welcome and their children would fit in. Unreached parents are more likely to report knowing another parent of a young child who goes to church regularly in 2025 than they were in 2019. So this is really interesting to me. Less of them have had an invite, but more of them say that they know an active or a Christian, sort of somebody who goes to church. But look at that, there's 65% and 5% who don't know, so I'm just going to include them. There's 70% of them who don't know somebody. So this is where things like a leaflet and something, a letterbox and a poster in a GP surgery could maybe help us to reach some of this 70% group who aren't actually in contact with one of us personally. So we really need to think of how can we take our mission forward and really reach this group. So little summary, we know that the out of the unreached group, almost half of them would love an invite. They'd be really happy with a letter through the letterbox. They want to know that they'd be welcome and their child would fit in, but they actually don't, many of them don't actually know another parent who is actively part of a church. Great. Okay, so now we're going to have a little quick flick through some of the findings on active Christian parents. So these, if you like, are part of the team and the people who come and the people who need to be mixing and actually doing some of the inviting. So 9 in 10 of our active Christian parents with a child under the age of 5 say they do know, and they do know non-Christian parents with children of the same age. So they are saying they're really well connected. They're also saying that they have been inviting, of those active Christian parents who know non-Christian parents, over 8 in 10 have invited those non-Christian parents to a church-based activity. So that's really wonderful. They are actually reporting the same levels of invitation as we had in 2019. So although our unreached Christians aren't reporting as many invitation, active Christians are saying they're inviting. So there's something missing, and it's to do with maybe the circles. I'm going to call it the circles of influence, that some of our unreached Christian parents don't know someone to be invited by. I'm going to do a bit more digging into the background of the data and the demographics to see if I can find out anything of the patterns of who these people are, to see why there is this, if you like, why there is a gap, which I think could be really helpful to us if we're looking at a strategy going forward. Active Christian parents are even more likely to invite their non-Christian friends to Sunday worship. I find that really, really interesting. So 52% of active Christian parents in 2025 said they would actually invite that non-Christian parent straight into Sunday worship. Now, it might be because that's what they're going to, and it's really easy to take somebody with you. But it was a fascinating thing to me. But they are inviting them to other things. But it's 27% who said they'd invite them to toddler groups. And as we're a particular toddler group network, we need to encourage our active Christian parents to be inviting people more to our toddler groups and our toddler group networks. The next slide was really interesting to me. The active Christian parents in 2025 said they felt it was less easy to share their faith with non-Christians in 2025 than 2019. I would have probably, if you'd have asked me beforehand, predicted that going the other way. So I find that really interesting, that there's a little bit more hesitancy among our active Christian parents on faith sharing. So that's something for us to take away, particularly on how we train up our parents in faith sharing, something that actually a lot of us are. I know that Hope EA, the Church of England, would all be really active and keen to help people to be able to share their faith with their friends and the people that they know. I've just got a couple more slides. Finally, active Christian parents are more confident in their ability to bring children up in the Christian faith than they were in 2019. So that's really interesting to me. So these active Christian parents are saying that they feel more able to bring their children up in the Christian faith than they did in 2019. Less able to share their faith, more able perhaps to disciple their children in the Christian faith. So again, really fascinating as to what those changes are. And they feel more supported by their local church. So active Christian parents are more likely to feel very supported by their local church in parenting in 2025 than they were in 2019. So that is a really good news. So if you're here and you're a church leader, well done. You are encouraging and you are supporting active Christian parents more actively in 25 to support them in their understanding of faith in God, growing their children up in Christian faith, and supporting them to do so. So that is really good news for the church and what we're doing with the active Christian parents. So that is a summary. I actually had to cut a whole pile of slides out. So what we will do is, when we've solidified everything down, I'm going to write some reports. We're going to write a report about each of those segments. We're going to do a deeper dive into the demographics to see if we can work out some of the things that are happening, if you like, behind the scenes that we can throw a light on. And we will get all of this to you so that you can use it where you are. You can use it with your teams, you can use it in your churches, and we hope that it really fuels the mission of the church to reach children under the age of 5 and their parents, so that we can see even more of them reached and a greater impact and more people loving, knowing and coming to follow Jesus. Wonderful. So that is enough from me, and I am going to hand back over to I think it is to Sammy.
No, I think we're going to come back to me. But we are going to go into just a short time of Q&A now, so that for those of you who've put your questions in the chat, we would love to pick up on some of those. So I'm going to welcome back into the screen Rachel and Sammy and Emma, if she's still with us, so that we can go straight into doing a bit of a deeper dive into some of what we've heard. Rachel, first of all, thank you so much. There is so much, again, in all of this research, isn't there? Lots that we've heard, lots to delve into. Again, just a reminder that for all that we've heard this morning, you will receive all the slides. So again, you can delve a little bit deeper. Or indeed, please feel free to contact us at Hope Together at EA, Emma at the Church of England, to just ask for support, for input, for clarification, whatever you need. We'd love to journey this with you. And also through the series of webinars, which we'll mention as we close, but just we'd love you to be on this journey with us. So I'm going to fire a few questions at you that again have come up in the chat, or a few of my own, having scribbled down loads of notes from so much of the headline findings. But my first question to each of you, just briefly, would be, for you personally, as you've heard these stats, what might be one of your personal takeaways, a headline stat which you think, on reflection, maybe to the 2020 research, now 2025, what jumps out at you? So let me come maybe to Sammy first, if that's all right. What would be your top big hitter stat, Sammy?
I love the sense of belonging and desire for connection that's coming out of this. So I love that in 2025, 53% of fringe parents identify it as my church, and that you might have children walking along the street on the way to the shops that go to a toddler group and say, that's my church. I love that stat. I love that sense of belonging and connection. There's an opportunity there.
Absolutely. And it comes out time and time again, doesn't it? Why do people come to us? That warmth of welcome, like you said, the building of relationships, the encounter with others. And it's a vulnerable time, as we know, isn't it? Particularly as first-time parents, coming into that space. I know from my experience, it's a lifeline, isn't it? And what an opportunity we have to speak not only of faith relationship, but of Jesus in a transformative way. So yeah, brilliant. Thanks for sharing that, Sammy. Emma, how about you? What jumps out at you from these?
So I think it's the active Christian parents are more confident in bringing up their children in the Christian faith has gone up 10% in 6 years. Like, to me, that's a game changer. Like, we know that most people, I mean, I know the Quiet Revival is kind of bucking the historic trends, but like, we know that most people come to faith under the age of 18, and parents are so imperative in supporting them. So that shift of 10%, I think, is really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I hope it goes up again in 6 years' time.
Yes, absolutely. And it should encourage us, shouldn't it? That again, what we pour in doesn't go wasted, does it? Actually, toddler groups, work with under fives, really important and powerful. Yeah, thanks, Emma. Rachel, you have a head to all of these. What would for you be a standout?
The big one, we've got a bigger reach, but I also love just that sense of that people are more like, I never thought there would be a huge growth in people wanting their children to be familiar with church. Just listen to that for 2 seconds. That there is a growth in the number of parents with children under the age of 5 who are actually wanting their children to be familiar with church. They want to have awareness of God, familiar with church, and that in those really big stats on they want their children to know Bible stories. And so there's almost this growth and hunger that we've heard in others, but we're seeing it again reported that people, they want this, and they want this for their children. And I think that's staggeringly exciting.
Yeah, it should really encourage us, shouldn't it? But also deeply challenge us. We've maybe in some groups, we've found over the years, haven't we? Actually, it's really challenging of ourselves to go there in terms of that spiritual input, the Bible stories, the Bible songs. But as you've said there, Rachel, when we look at the research, and I noted it down here, parents wanting their children to have an awareness of God has gone from 16% to 23%. People wanting that their children to have knowledge of Christianity from 12 to 18%. Bible stories from 9 to 13. As you've said, there's that jump, isn't there? So Emma, I'm going to come to you if that's all right, just before we launch in some of the questions in the chat. For you, you've mentioned your Friday morning toddler group space again. How have you as a team or with others, or what can we encourage our friends here on the call? How do we become a bit bolder and braver to make the most of when we sense that people are coming in with that desire, with that expectation? When we're working with teams, as many of us are, how can we encourage that Christian distinctiveness to really come through when we recognise that backdrop?
I think that if you haven't got it, you need to reset. I think it's really hard to try and sort of like move things by 1 degree. Like, so I think that from our point of view, from my point of view, it should always include a Bible story. It should always include a prayer. It should always include praise, and also include a reflective story, which kind of you're capturing the parents' mind. So it's children, young people, and families ministry. And don't forget the F, I think is the most important thing. If you haven't had it and you feel super awkward about trying to shoehorn it in, then maybe take a break and relaunch it. And so for us, calling it Toddler Praise in the title is what it is. So you could rebrand it if that would help you to say what it is, and be really invitational as well. And think about like the pathway. So if you're doing it, which is great, but how are you in, like, I was, something you said earlier, Rachel, about invitation, no one would be invited. Like, how are we inviting people into things and making sure that that connection is there as well, giving people the opportunity to explore, like, what about the Alpha course? What about Sunday morning? What's the next thing? But if you haven't incorporated it, re just stop and rebrand, because I've seen so many people try to move it by 1 degree and it doesn't really happen.
Well, therein lies a good challenge, and I wonder whether actually sometimes what other research as well is telling us, isn't it? Is, as we've heard today, this is what people outside of the church or connected to us want. Sometimes we're the ones, aren't we, who are lacking in our own confidence to be, like you said, be bolder or be a bit braver. So actually, that time to reset looks like.
And I just think, like, I remember someone saying, it might have even been one of the people on this call, but like, if you went to a sports club with your child and they never did anything about sports, they'd think it was really weird. So, like, actually, just be bold and strong that they're coming in to the church. They're expectant to know and learn more, and not to feel like they have to shy away from that.
Yeah, brilliant. That was really helpful. And it links into one of the comments that came in the chat from Tim. Tim commented and said that what we see in the research is that Christian parents, when asked, had a higher recognition of Christian content. And the question was around, is it a different type of group or is it just down to perception? But I wonder there whether it's actually we make it a bigger thing sometimes, that we think, oh, we're a bit nervous about putting in Christian content. Whereas for those who are joining, who are open, they're willing, they're wanting to know more for their child, but also for themselves going on that journey, they maybe don't even clock it as much as maybe we might think that it's going to be a blight, sort of, glaring light in their eyes. I wonder if we can go to a few of the questions. One question asked us, is there any research on groups that have additional needs, or from our experience, any significant findings or tweaks that we would say really help in the context of toddler groups, where we might have some there that need some, again, additional needs within the group context? Sammy, maybe I can come to you for that one, your experience.
I picked up on that question in the chat, and I think it was Nikki that asked it. And I said, I think this is a huge need. So I'm just going to speak really openly and honestly. So I'm autistic, and after I had my second child, walking in on the toddler group, it was hugely overwhelming. They didn't say what time they started. They didn't say what the format of their session was. So you're trying to juggle a child that wakes and eats at different times, and you think, well, I don't even know what time to get there for, and I don't know how they segment it up. So we actually did do what Emma is suggesting, because I ended up running that toddler group and it wasn't intentionally Christian. So we kind of stopped it for 6 months, relaunched. Can I just say, people, we doubled the number of children coming on a Sunday in 6 years through that toddler group. Okay, we grew 100%. But what I did was we made it really intentional about faith and really accessible. So you can be intentional but still accessible. But it meant making the structure really clear. So we were very clear about our timings, very clear about our structure, very clear about our transitions. And we also had buddies. So if anybody came for the first time and I was able to find out roughly where did they live in the city, what ages were their children, I would be able to find a buddy who would come out and meet them and take them into the room and sit with them. So that within a really big group, because we would have 50 odd people there, we created a small group around them. So that was just a little bit that I did, but I'm hoping to have a chat to Nikki, because this might be something that we can include in the future. I think it's a really big area of need.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you flagged there, not just in our children, but actually with adults, I think it was Nikki who put in the chat, for those who find it quite anxiety inducing coming into that space, as you said, how can we still make them feel welcome and provided for? Amazing. One of the questions again is, any creative ideas? And Rachel, what are your thoughts around this? Creative ideas for recruiting volunteers. We have an aging workforce, one of our members said. So any thoughts on that particularly? Who should we look for? Where should we go? How do we draw people in to become part of the team? Any thoughts?
I mean, it's always one of those things, and particularly, isn't it, since COVID, we found in churches that getting back our volunteer teams has been a struggle. I think we're growing again, but in so many different areas. One of the things I haven't looked at in the demographics, but because the data's, as you can see, only just been done, would be to see the difference between I know it happened in the 2019. More active Christian parents were both working, like they were working full time, and this had a big impact on. It has a big impact on whether they're free and available to help, like in a weekday context. So, but actually, interestingly, more of the unreached parents weren't working. So, two things. Getting the vision and helping active Christian parents to see the vision and understand the impact that they could have. So that's probably going to be on one-on-one. And I remember being in a church where all the active Christian parents didn't want to go to the toddler group because it was too noisy. So they started their own in a house and they didn't want to actually be involved. And I remember going, oh my word, this is like, we've really got to do something about that. The other one is, how many of the people that come could actually be grown up in leadership? And by being grown up in leadership and perhaps coming along to be part of your group that plans toddlers, they might grow in their faith and their prayer as well. So sometimes helping people to move from I'm coming to I'm part of making this happen. So the answer might actually be in the room with some of them. And as they come on that journey with you, there's a really good chance they might come to faith.
Amazing. So
anyone else? Emma's got something to say on that.
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, because the Church of England is so focused on this, what's brilliant is they're producing loads of resources to really help these great missional challenges. So like volunteers is probably one of the most critical missional challenges we have to face when we're thinking about children in youth work. So go online. They're not Church of England like particularly. Like I think what I mean is they can work ecumenically. There's some fantastic resources called Join, and like there's videos you can show in your church to really encourage people to step up and volunteer. Different postcards to give out, loads of different resources. So it's called the 30K project because we're looking to recruit 27,000 new volunteers and 3,000 paid workers. But if you go online, hopefully you could use those in your context.
Brilliant.
Sammy?
I would just say notice who does it anyway. Notice who stays at the end to help you pack away. Notice who helps we used to have kind of snack time and story time. Notice who helps there. Notice who turns up early and is prepared to roll their sleeves up. Okay, because it's often a really easy ask to then say, actually, you're here anyway. Would you like to be part of the team? And as Rachel said, what we did is we would meet as team before and after, and that became a small group where people started to explore faith. But start by looking for who does it anyway amongst your parents. They're your kind of, prime for asking if they'd like to volunteer.
Excellent. Great advice. Thank you. Rachel, you picked up particularly about this, not just the power of invitation, but the means by which we should invite. Again, tell us a little bit more about that. What do you see in the wider sort of culture context, do you think, that makes, again, that reminder of who's invited, that power of invitation, and the means by which, anything that you particularly would encourage people to take away, think about over the summertime, maybe look ahead with around that invitation and what we saw in the stats?
I mean, the big hilarious thing at the top, wasn't it, was a leaflet. I almost laughed. I think it's almost like a cultural backlash on everything being through the phone. So I think we could all manage a poster and a leaflet. I don't know if Emma, you might have some already made. Sammy could certainly help. We could do a generic design, and some of you might have some storming ones already that we could just populate, and then other people could take off and put on their own things. Does that make sense? So that you can just get them printed at Instaprint and do a leaflet drop through every door. I just thought that was so easy and actually so doable. And remember, the two things that are really important: they want to know they'd be really, really welcome, and they want to know their child would fit in. So yes. How we could fit that in. Someone else has put here about, did you do a little film about, someone else has put in the chat about doing a little film about what happened. So you could even have I know it's a bit media, but you could have a QR code on it, and it could link to a little film where people could see, this is what happens at toddler group. Here we all are. Hello, you'd be really welcome. I'm imagining now, but that they could then look at. Do you see what I mean? And even if you did some little social media bits like that, where you get everyone waving and saying, you'd be so welcome, we'd love to see you here next week. So that concept of how to make it, those two things are the things they're worried about, that my child won't fit in and I would be really welcome. So, and they want their child to enjoy it. So if you think about your design in leaflets and you get those, and hey, I think many of the people in your church would be willing to drop a leaflet through a door. And then, of course, it is enabling the invite. And I think someone else had a great thing on Bubble Church. Was it everybody carries Bubble Church invites wherever they go, and they give them to anybody almost that they see who might fit? So again, if you like, growing the invitation power, not just to the few, but to the many in your church, even if they don't have children, you know, they might be able to walk the dog, but see some children playing it, see some parents with children in the park, have a conversation, give them a Bubble Church invite. So if you like, enlarging your invitation group, doing old school like leaflets, and remembering the two things that we've learned that are really key for that are stopping people coming.
Really fascinating what you've just said there. I'll come to you, Sammy. Is just that it's a whole church activity, isn't it? You know, toddler groups working with underfight, it's not a bolt-on, is it? It's something that actually profiling it amongst the body of the church, prayerfully supporting the toddler groups and the work with young children is something, as you said, whether it's handing out a flyer, having a flyer in the bag, it's something that we can encourage our wider churches and engaging church leaders around as well, isn't it? Sammy?
I was just going to say that there's that phrase, isn't it? You have to see it to be it. And I think both in terms of the invitation, but also in terms of inclusion, there's something about making it really visible what the offer is that will help both. You know, Kelly was saying from Bubble Church that they have a visual timetable. Rachel's mentioned the video, but something that helps parents to really see who is toddler group, what is toddler group, actually will hit both of those points. It'll help people to feel like, yes, I'll fit. And also, actually, it won't be too overwhelming for me. I know what to expect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and somebody said to me not all that long ago about some of this shift in openness that we're seeing and sensing, that one of the challenges a church leader threw out and said this, so you're telling us that actually where maybe we might have invited people to come along to something, say a year, 2 or 3 again, because there's been this shift in openness, people searching out stuff of spiritual nature, wanting this for their children, maybe we should go again in the invite. And I thought when this church leader said that to me, yes, absolutely, there's something in that, isn't there, that actually where we may have invited before, maybe now is the time to go again. Really appreciated all the comments and the questions in the chat. I hope we've been able to pick up on some of those. But again, once you hear from us with the recording, please do come back if there's any questions that we can dig a bit deeper into some of the research and fuel you with, or just stand alongside and support and pray you on. Just to close, I wonder if I could come back to each of you, Rachel, Emma and Sammy, to just say, off the back of this research, looking ahead for all of our brilliant leaders who are with us today, what would your kind of closing commissioning prayerful word be? What should be or could be our hope in this season off the back of what we've seen and learned from some of this research today? If that's not too big a question to put you on the spot with, let me come to Sammy first.
Oh, thank you, Rachel, for coming to me first. I think I would like to link the desire for belonging and connection with the power of the invitation and the opportunity we have to increase the confidence levels of Christian parents to make that invitation. People want to belong. Let's make the most of that in how we do the invitation.
Brilliant. Yeah, and that growth in confidence, something we maybe just as I've coined the phrase for myself over the last few years, what's the worst that can happen? Actually, when we speak of something of our own faith journey or answer prayer or Jesus, we might find more open than we think.
And just knowing that people want to belong can increase our confidence levels. It's like, oh, okay, actually the ground might not be as hard as I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Thank you. Emma, what would your thoughts be?
Well, the word that comes into my head is from an old action song. Be bold, be strong, for the Lord your God is with you. You know, we need to be bold in our mission. We need to, if we are called by God to do this, then do run the race that God and Jesus has set before you and be bold in that. And like there's been lots of conversation in the chat in the background about, oh, how do we do this? Like look up Truth Be Told by Gemma Gillard. She's amazing at really helping and equipping you to be able to tell like a story which is integrating Jesus into it so beautifully. There's so many resources out there. So be bold about your mission, be strong. If you get a bit of pushback from maybe some of the other leaders, take people with you. Take people with you on this. So you might need to have some extra time and extra meetings to transition from where you are to where you want to be. And remember to do this prayerfully and faithfully because God is with you on this journey. And I pray a blessing over you and your ministries as you continue.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Emma. Yeah, be bold, be strong. Rachel, what would your closing thought be as we...
Number one, well done. I think I said it a few times, but I just want to say it again. Well done, well done, well done. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all the hours that you put in, for all the sweat, tears and prayer, for all the people that you get alongside. You really are the forefront of mission. This is making a significant difference. If you think we could reach almost a whole generation through what you're all doing together and what we're all doing together, there is the opportunity. We're at 80%. We haven't got long to go. And if we can invite that last 47% of the unreached, that would give us another almost 10%. We'd be at almost 90%. We have an extraordinary opportunity that nearly every under 5 in the UK could be in touch with the church and could meet Jesus for themselves, learn how to pray, learn what a difference he could make in their lives. Now that is exciting.
Absolutely. And hopefully you all agree. I'm sure you do. There's lots to delve into here, isn't there? Lots to be learnt and digested. But hope from some of what you've heard and just our brief chat here actually helps land some of those big hitter stats, the amazing reach that we have working with families with under 5-year-old. But love to encourage you just to stay for the next few moments because we'd love to share with you just again some resources that can help serve you within this space as you go about your toddler, your children, your family's ministry. So what I'd love to share with you from an Evangelical Alliance perspective before handing to others is a new piece of research which absolutely ties into all that we've been speaking about against the backdrop of what we've already heard, the Quiet Revival research. Talking Jesus, both Rachel and I, along with Sammy, have spoken to it many times, what the Talking Jesus research told us about pathways to faith and people's openness. What we've done recently is produce a new piece of research, as you can see here, called Finding Jesus, looking at exactly those pathways to faith. We wanted to know, as you'll see on the next slide, 3-parters. We wanted to know why is it that the 300 Christians that we surveyed who'd come to faith in the last 5 years, we wanted to know what was it that helped in your journey towards Jesus? What actually happened at that point of making a decision and what's happened since? And just to whet your appetite, I'd love to just share with you a few of those. And all of this can be found, if it serves you, on findingjesus.co.uk. The next slide showed us this, really encouraging for us that as we looked at these just under 300 Christians who'd come to faith in adulthood, some would have said cultural Christians, others were open to things of faith, spiritual, not religious. But if you cast your eye to the bottom of the screen, what we also learn is that 72% of those that we surveyed who'd come to faith said that they could track back to some form of input of Christianity in their life from a much younger age. Isn't that encouraging for us? Most of these people cited it could have been a toddler group, a holiday group, a youth club. Again, other groups that had that Christian distinctiveness, but 72% who came to faith later in life cited, again, this sowing of the seeds, as we would call it, the input into their youth. We went on to ask this question, what helped you on your journey as in exploring faith? And the next slide shows us that just like we've talked about, some people connecting with our toddler groups, our children's ministry, and indeed other ministries said, you know what, I just needed help with life. I was looking for meaning, or it was off the back of sometimes difficult or painful experience. But also you can see 29% of people said it was being alongside other Christians, the impact of Christian faith on somebody that I knew, or that Christians spoke to me. We've been talking about that together this morning, haven't we? That verbal and the presence of being alongside other Christians. And in that, 28% of people told us that they had a spiritual experience and that prompted their journey to faith. We heard this resoundingly time after time. And one woman called Carly, who's in the Finding Jesus report, as a mum of 5, told us that it was expressly off the back of being loved and valued in a toddler group context that started her journey to faith, connected her into church, and she became a Christian and is well known to me now, a mum of 5 whose journey started within a toddler group. Again, just to share a couple more facts and findings with you, we asked what helped you along the way, and we found this, that it was 59% of people said it was attending church in person, going along to groups as well. 42%, as you can see there, said that they attended a course or a small group. 47% of people said it was reading the Bible. Maybe that could challenge us as well. How do we have gospels in our toddler group context? How do we put the Bible out and available for people to take away? Because what we're certainly seeing across the UK is this depth of openness to the word of God that is proving transformative as well. Just briefly, as we flick further ahead, again, we see on this picture here just that sense of all that we've been talking about, haven't we? The relationship power of being alongside. People told us that when they came to faith, they journeyed towards Jesus. It was both the spoken word and the actions of Christians around them that led to them exploring faith and coming to make a decision to follow Jesus. So just to flag up that new research to you, if that is of use, then you can go to findingjesus.co.uk, as you can see on this next slide. Love to share with you that research as to, like we said, what helped, who was along the way, what happened at that decision point of following Jesus, and what's happened since. There's some fascinating findings in that too. And just lastly from us at the EA, on our next slide, just to flag one resource, particularly for parents, for children's and youth workers, for church leaders too. Time to Talk is a resource that grapples with some of those big hitter conversations around relationships and sex education. In this resource and a stream of webinars, we look at things like sexual harassment and consent, talking to our children about what they're taught on their RSE curriculum in schools, or around subjects like pornography and so on. If that would serve you well, that resource too is available on the EA website. So that's just a few things from us at the EA. I'm going to hand over to Sammy, who's going to tell you about some stuff coming out of Hope Together.
Thank you, Rachel. I don't have more research for you. I don't have any more numbers. I have some resources for you, because I know that when I led a toddler group at the end of the summer term, I often wanted to give something to our young families, both to those that maybe were going on to school and I might not see again, but also something to feed others over the summer. And we've heard this morning, haven't we, about both that desire for belonging and how people are open to their children exploring God and exploring Bible stories. And we've heard about the power of that relational connection and the power of invitation. So I've got a couple of things on the next slide, if Anna can make the magic work, that might help you. Okay, one is a book. Those of you that come along to Talking Toddlers regularly will know that we offer a series called God's Big Story. They use Happyland children's toys from the Entertainer toy shops to tell stories from the Bible. The one that I would recommend from this at this time of year is this one, Lost and Found. It picks up on lots of the lost and found stories from the Bible: the lost coin, the lost sheep, the lost son. At this time of year, change and transition, just being out of routine over the summer, or whether it is that you're going to a preschool or a school in September. It's a really helpful theme for that change and transition time of year. Every book comes with a free toddler group resource, a free all age resource, an action song, and an animation. They're all on the QR codes inside. If you want something for parents who are exploring faith, maybe a parent who's had a conversation with you in a toddler group context, or who has asked a prayer, we have cards of hope. So these are very, very creative, beautifully designed, but accessible cards that are prayer cards for people. Each card has something to think about, something to read, and something to watch or to listen to. But they're designed to support people through some of these conversations we might have in our toddler groups that might lead us to pray for them. So cards of hope, we do them as postcards that you can give them away. So I often give them to my friends and neighbours here. I'm a church planter on a new estate if I'm praying for a new job for them or peace for them. But we also have bigger ones. If any of you ever run prayer spaces in your toddler group, you might be interested in those. Finally, we have our Gospels. We know that people at the moment are interested in reading the Bible. That's what a lot of the research from Finding Jesus, Talking Jesus to the Quiet Revival is telling us. People are more open to reading the Bible and exploring church than we've known in quite a long time. And at Hope, we love to produce beautiful, accessible Gospels. So in our Gospels, you don't find the thin paper, you don't find the small type, you don't find the verses. They are beautifully illustrated, lots of white processing space. You can get audio and visual versions of them as well. Okay, so depending on where people are in their journey, depending on your conversations with them, you might find it appropriate to give them a gospel. We've got Mark and Luke and a special 80 years since the end of World War II Gospel of John. We have Acts as well, and we have a mainstream like Mark and Luke Gospel of John coming as well. If you have noticed all the research that has been coming out into people's openness to reading the Bible, I had 3 young people walk into church on Sunday because they wanted a copy of the Bible. They'd never been into a church before, they'd never read the Bible before. But we have a webinar at Hope coming up on Tuesday, our great gospel giveaway webinar. You'd be really welcome to come along if you check out the webpage, and there's a link to sign up there. Otherwise, you can just email me, it's in the chat, and I'll send you the link. But we're looking at people want to belong, they're hungry for the Bible. How do we make it accessible to them? How can we give it away to them? So that's the end of our webinar for today. It has been amazing to see you. You have done a brilliant job. I asked you at the beginning to join in on the chat, and oh my goodness, have you done that? Okay, amazing job, fantastic questions. What you have also done, what you always do, is be the most brilliant resource for this community, because you've provided us with lots of ideas for future toddler group, Talking Toddlers sessions. I've got leaflets, volunteers, songs, stories, inclusion, bubble church, all written down on my list. But if you'd love us to cover all of that and be here, then we need you on our database. So to start by signing up today, we will email you with the slides from the deck today and a link to the recording from today. But we cannot contact you again. So to stay in touch with us about future Talking Toddlers sessions, please do sign up for our database. We promise we'll only contact you about the things you sign up for. Okay, and that'll mainly be these Talking Toddlers sessions, which happen 3 times a year. Now, we are still in June, I know, but the C word is coming up. Okay, it's not sun cream or ice cream, it's Christmas. So our next Talking Toddlers session together is going to be on Thursday, the 23rd of October. And we're going to be talking all things Christmas, because we know in our Talking Toddlers and church communities, we like to plan Christmas early. 23rd of October might not even be early enough for you. So if you've already started planning, come along and tell us your best ideas. And if you haven't, come knowing that you'll get some. But for today, thank you for coming. It's been amazing to have you. And I'm going to hand back to Rachel, who I think is going to pray for us as we step into whatever God has planned for us for the rest of our days. Rachel, over to you.
Thanks so much, Sammy. Just as we do that, Sammy, could you just explicitly tell us, how do people sign up to the database? There's a few people are asking to be added. What do they need to do today to stay in touch?
Very, very easy. Anna might in a minute put it in the chat, but when you get the email from us, the amazing Anna will send it you in the next 10 days. It will have a link to this video. It will have today's slides. It will also have a link to sign up to the database. And Rachel's also put the link for our webinar in there as well. So look, the last 2 things on there, if you've got your phone, quick, take a photo now. Rachel's post is a link to the Great Gospel Giveaway webinar on Tuesday, where we're looking at how to make the most of the opportunity in this moment for people who want to find out more about the Bible. And then Anna's link is our sign up form, but it will also be in the email that we will send to all 310 people that signed up today. That's how you sign up to the database and stay in contact.
Thank you so much, Sammy. That's really clear. Awesome. It would be great, as Sammy said, just as we go, to first of all just say a huge thank you to you for joining us. Really hope and trust and pray that this has been of interest to you, that it's been of use. Really hope that as you take away a couple or two or three golden nuggets of the things that you've heard, that you feel really encouraged, that you feel really cheered on and championed too. As we said right at the beginning, not only are we in this together, but we pray together, we stand alongside you, and just so value the work that you and everyone is doing across the UK to see Jesus made known. So why don't we just have a word of prayer together before we go, and then we'll see you for the next webinar later in the year. But let's pray. Father God, just thank you so much for this time together. Thank you for everyone who has inputted for this research that just paints a picture, Lord, of all that you are doing and the great potential of working in the wonderful families in our community with children under the age of 5. Lord, we thank you for all the vast, many connection points that we already have, those huge numbers of people that connect with us as churches, as ministries, as toddler groups. Lord, for us as the troops, the people who are serving and leaning in and connecting, building relationships, pouring our hearts and soul into planning for these groups week in, week out, whatever they look like in our context. Jesus, I just pray for each one of us. Would you refresh us? Would you build us up? May there be moments over this summertime period that we just get to stand back, to prayerfully reflect, to seek you and feel really encouraged seeing all that you are about in the work that we're a part of. Thank you, Lord, that we are not here by accident. You have called each one of us by name. And so for each one of my friends here, Jesus, just pray for that refreshing sense of vision, encouragement, and charge indeed, Lord, for the year ahead, but hopefully after a break in the middle first. So, Lord, we thank you for these statistics, that it paints that picture of where you are powerfully at work in our nation. And we just pray, Jesus, that we may stay, as always, in step with where your Spirit is leading. So I pray blessing and favour upon all of the groups and the ministries, the churches, the people that we represent. And we pray, Lord, that whether it's before the summer or even into the coming months, would you be powerfully at work to draw people to yourself. Bless everyone, I pray, in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Thank you so much again for joining us, for sticking with us. We hope and pray that all of this will resource you well. Big blessings. Enjoy the rest of your day, your week, and have an amazing summertime. We look forward to seeing you in October. Do stay connected. Bye for now.